Hey guys, what's up? Killjoy Jake here, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. With Tales from the Hood 3 and Clive Barker's Books of Blood coming out this week, well, this past week I should say, I decided to make a top 10 list of my favorite horror anthology movies. But before I get into that, I'm gonna need you guys to like this video and subscribe for more horror content. Alright, now let's get into it.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Well, sometimes that is better.
Oh, no, not the beast! Not the beast!
There are other entities who are malevolent and have a more insidious agenda.
Now before I give you my top 10 list, I really want to talk about some honorable mentions. There are some great horror anthology films out there that you may not even know about. Honorable mentions include Tales from the Crypt, VHS Viral, Body Bags, All Hallows Eve, Kaiden, Dead of Night, which is the first anthology horror film technically, Tales from the Dark Side, XX, and Trilogy of Terror. Or as my dad calls it, the Triology of Terror. I don't know why, it's a dad joke. Coming in 10th place is Tales from the Hood. I'm a really big fan of this one for using social commentary through all of its skits. It has a really good message about race and racism, not just against one side, it's like an all-around judgment of everybody. Which is cool that these directors can acknowledge that. On top of that, it's also super funny, which is something that I'm always wanting in my horror film as well. I love a stew of a movie where you have like creepy images, you got a little bit of silliness, and then you also have this subtle social commentary. Unfortunately, in the sequels, it's just not that subtle. Which is why the first one is easily superior to both 2 and 3. Coming in 9th place is the ABCs of Death. This is a really fun movie overall, but there's just a few skits that totally ruin it for me. There's specifically one that I don't really even want to talk about because it's just so gross, and it's unbelievably sexual. I don't really like when they mix horror with sexual, like it doesn't work for me at all. But besides like 2 of the skits in this film, the rest of them are either really funny or actually pretty scary. And all of the skits in this movie are based off of just a single letter. I can't believe I have to look this up. Siri, how many letters are in the alphabet? Coming in 8th place is Southbound, done mostly by the Radio Silence team, who's responsible for another anthology series we're going to be talking about a little higher up in the list. This film is really cool because it not only ties in all its skits together through kind of a weird narrative going down the same stretch of road, but it also has some of the best digital effects I have seen in a horror film, which is something I don't say often. If I say that your digital effects are good, I mean, that's a pretty high bar to pass. I despise digital effects in horror films. I think that if you have money and you're in Hollywood, you should go with practical effects or you're just lazy as unless it is done right. And there are only 3 movies I can think of where the digital effects are actually really solid. Cabin in the Woods, Southbound, and the movie Crawl. Coming in 7th place is Books of Blood. Now I was actually really impressed with this, but not at first. The first 2 skits of Books of Blood are just kind of mediocre at best. The first one has a really disappointing ending. The second one has some pretty cool visuals in it and some good scares. What can I say? I'm a sucker for tie-ins. It's why Pulp Fiction is one of my favorite movies of all time. That isn't horror, of course. Coming in 6th place is Holidays. I feel like most people probably don't like this one, but I'm a big fan of it. The Easter sketch and the New Year's sketch are things that like still I think about sometimes. It really left an imprint on me because of how like either weird or creepy they were or how kind of brilliant it was. The weird and creepy one was the Easter Bunny one, of course, which still gives me nightmares in the springtime, but then the New Year's Eve one was actually really smart. It has a really dope twist ending that I just recommend the whole film because of that one skit. Holiday horror films usually rely on taking like a children's character like Santa and then like having him just murder a bunch of people. But this one takes it a step further and actually has intelligent writing, which is something you don't see in a lot of these movies. I'm looking at you, Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2, or I guess all of the sequels to Silent Night, Deadly Night. Coming in 5th place is Creepshow. Yeah, I know a lot of you just groaned and said, that's easily the best anthology horror film ever. But come on guys, I mean there's been so many more anthology horror films that have come out since then. And don't get me wrong, I'm a huge fan of both of the Creepshow movies. And Creepshow 2 might still be on this list, don't you fret. But the first Creepshow does feel a little outdated to me, but at the same time it's so entertaining and gross and silly. And Leslie Nielsen's in this movie in a dramatic role. You might not have known this, but he was actually a dramatic actor before he did Airplane. And then everything was downhill from there. There's also a few duds in Creepshow, like the cockroach one. That one just was weird to me. Like you could have totally taken that out of this film. But the Leslie Nielsen skit where he buries the dude in the sand and Father's Day are pretty good. Coming in fourth place is VHS, another radio silence film that I'm a pretty big fan of. The only thing I don't like about the first VHS is it's really mean. Like, mean in a bad way. The opening shot of this film is a bunch of dudes running up to some girl in a parking lot and like lifting up her shirt and filming it. Why? Why would you even include that? Horrible first shot of this film, but luckily it does get better. The last skit of this film is my personal favorite, where they go through like this crazy ghost house and all these hands are sticking out of the walls. Once again, really good digital effects. Radio silence is just known for that. And they're also the team that's heading this new Scream 5 film that I've been talking about like a whole bunch on the channel. I'm still super pumped for that. And hopefully we can get a VHS 4 sometime, guys. Please, come on, let's get that going. Coming in third place is Creepshow 2. I'm probably the minority opinion here, thinking that Creepshow 2 is better than the original, but to me, it's easily way better. Sure, the production seems like a little lower on Creepshow 2, but at the same time, The Raft is easily one of my all-time favorite anthology horror skits. Sure, the characters suck, but the effects look pretty dope, and who would think to make an oil slick a monster? That's pretty smart to me, and I can't think of anywhere else that's been done. Also, Creepshow 2 is consistent with all of its skits. All of them have something to offer, even if some of them aren't fantastic. All of them at least have like a really cool visual or a really good story, so that kind of consistency is what puts this way above the first one in my opinion. Coming in second place is Trick or Treat, probably the most iconic anthology horror film ever made. Unfortunately, the film bombed at the box office, but with that being said, Sam from Trick or Treat, sitting right here, is unbelievably iconic in the horror scene, even to this day, and we've never gotten a sequel to it. I still think we should do a whole movie just about Sam. Get on that, Mike Doherty. But on top of that, this anthology horror film is also very consistent, having all of its skits be pretty scary and have good effects all around, which is really all I'm looking for in movies like this. Anthology horror films are just kind of like candy. Like, you get like these quick little jabs of horror, and like, you know, we don't have too much of a setup for a plot or anything like that, because all the skits are like 30 minutes. And coming in first place is VHS 2. Fight me, internet. I know you disagree with this, but it's my favorite horror anthology ever. I think all of the skits are really terrifying, and it's a little less mean than the original, which gives it a lot of points in my book. The cult skit and the zombie GoPro one are two of my all-time favorite anthology horror skits that are very minimalistic but also very effective. That to me is way more impressive than what you can do with a huge budget like some of the other films on this list. Seriously though, if you haven't seen VHS 2, that zombie GoPro skit is worth the whole movie. Even if you hate everything else about it, I mean, that one's pretty dope. And pretty dang scary. I mean, when aren't zombies scary? Well, I can think of a few movies, but this one is effective. So what do you guys think about my list? Do you agree with it, or do you think I'm full of Leave me something about it in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching my top 10 list on horror anthology movies. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more horror content. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at KilljoyJake1 and on Instagram at Killjoy_Jake. And now on Twitch at KJJ Live. And as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.